All right, so I've hidden out here in the barn from my children once again, and figured I would discuss Alone Season 8, Episode 3. It was a little slower episode because people having a hard time getting their footing on the food and such. Um, but it was a good episode nonetheless, as they all are. It's a good show. We'll start with Biko, who typical with his good attitude. I'm very curious to watch Biko because he's in a place that is hard with the food. He does have a good body style. If he can just get some fish, he's got a positive attitude. I wonder how long he'll be able to make it. So we see him building his shelter, building his little pine bough bed and all that, which they are surprisingly comfortable. I slept very well and always have on pine boughs. You can just adjust them just right to lump up right under your lumbar and all that. Anyway, so he's got himself a nice bed now, found some boards, good deal. And then what everybody's talking about is he swam across the water like an idiot to check out. I'm just kidding. People are giving him a lot of criticism. I think he did a good thing. I think you got to explore your land. You never know what's going to be over there. Yeah, who knows what you can find? A little creek that has a good fishing spot. Or they didn't show very much of his exploration on that side. But I, for one, I didn't swim because I would have drowned trying to swim across Great Slave Lake. But I did go very far and wide exploring. I also, from my little island or peninsula, could look far, far in a certain direction and see where the forest fire ended. And I always dreamt of going to that promised land. And so early on, I did go down there, and it was it is a big expenditure of calories. And but you learn a lot of things. For one, it was the only place on my whole territory where I found a bear track, so it gave me something to think about. Later on in the show, as I was eating the moose and wondering, man, is this thing going to go 6 months? I was kicking myself for, I had the idea, but I just didn't do it. But when I got the moose to immediately go down where I'd seen the only bear sign and set up a bait pile and hunt it, and then I would have had a moose and a bear, and I would have been set for the winter. I was really busy smoking the moose and doing all kinds of stuff, protecting it from the wolverine. I never did that, and I almost kicked myself later. But I only found that bear track because I had gone miles down the shoreline. And so, if they would have shown that and showed me coming back without much, other than, fresh berries, because I did get to a non-burned site and got a bunch of new types of berries, which was exciting. But anyway, you got to explore to know what's there. And so Biko swam across. I appreciate it. He could have taken his bow with him just in case. They do float, so you can kind of push it along and swim. But I'm all for it. He's exploring. He's doing what you got to do. And good for you, Biko. Too bad it was such a lousy spot. Which just goes to show the food's not coming easy here for anybody. A couple fish, a grouse. I don't know what they may or may not be showing, but from everything I've heard on the side, there's not a lot that they're catching that they're not showing so far. So people are scraping by. And then we got Clay, and Clay is a interesting follow in this episode because, for one, I think he builds a really nice shelter. I was real concerned on mine about making it small so that when the deep winter came, I could bury it with snow. That's not something I think they're going to have to worry about as much where they are. I don't think it's quite as bitterly cold, although I don't think it'd be a bad play. But he built a really nice shelter with a nice fireplace, and I'll have to talk to him sometime. I like to have my fire in my shelter because I like, the square footage around your fire is your most valuable square footage. You can dry your boots, dry your this or that, cook your food. So you need a lot of space around your fire. I was thinking with a fireplace, when you stick it back in there, you only have that front window kind of. And it's good for smoke, and you can build a potentially a pretty big fire in there if it's well built. So I'm wondering how that worked for him. It again, I chose to line my fireplace with stone, but keep it like open, and then I built a little hood vent that caught the smoke and funneled it out, so smoke wasn't an issue and fire wasn't an issue. But I did like having my fire in the open. But the craftsmanship that Clay showed is excellent, and it'd be kind of a fun thing to discuss and decide which is the route to go. But I like what he did. Then he goes out. I think Clay has the right attitude. He knows he's skinny. That puts a particular pressure on you, as it did me, and he feels that pressure. And he's right away you can see he's exploring, fishing, hunting. He goes to his burn site and hopes to get some action there. But unfortunately, it's just a mess of logs, really hard to move through, really hard to sneak through, especially. So he gets discouraged. I think that comes to another interesting discussion point that I, for myself, learned. When you do go out there, I have the same mental approach as Clay, where it's like you don't hope for anything. You try not to be too. You just try to keep it real. Expect the worst and okay yourself with that. That's fine that it's going to be terrible. And then when things go well, you're only, it's only a positive thing. You're not constantly being disappointed. But myself, both went out there and we, like everyone, you're hoping for the best spot. And when you get dropped off there, you're like, probably also, I've seen a lot of people get dropped off their spot and be like, oh wow, this is beautiful, I love it, which is great. That was not my impression, and Clay's soon came to that point also. On a side note, so you see Clay kind of get down. I'm not sure if it's from him missing his family, which they imply, or if it's, but I kind of don't think that's it, because he goes on hunts all the time longer than 8 days. I think it's on the 8th day. What I think it is a combination of when you're out there, there's a lot of pressure on you, especially when you are thin and you know that your route to success is only through success. So there's a lot of pressure on him. I had a lot of pressure on me. And when you get there and your spot doesn't seem like it's going to match either your expectations or what you need to do, it can be a real drag. The production team makes fun of me and apparently Roland, because Roland and I have complained about our sites more than anybody else. So I think it comes with having knowledge and expectations, having experience in similar environments. You know what you're gonna do, but then you get dropped off at a spot and none of that's available to you, and you're just like, what? I was really mad. They even showed me complaining about it on TV. Early on, and I think that's what's hitting Clay now too. It's just like, my spot's not going to be able to support my strategy. But getting down, getting mad, that's just a natural part of things. If I were to do it again, I would not put that much pressure on my site myself. I'd just go out and make it happen, and I would, wouldn't have to unnecessarily suffer. So I don't think it's the end of the world for Clay. I think he's just gonna have to adapt, which is what I had to do. It's like, there's no berries, no grouse, no bears here. I'm gonna have to adapt my strategy, and then look at what you do have. And those were my thoughts. And eventually you came to terms with it, and so that's what I did. I expect the same. I really don't think he's gonna tap for his family this early, because, like I said, he's a experienced backwoodsman hunter. He's been without his family long enough periods of time. What else did he have there? Well, of course, he had the bear encounter. But really, I think the most interesting aspect is that early pressure that you have on yourself, and that pressure that can come when you allow yourself too much. I don't know if I want to say hope, but if you're banking on something too much. Like we saw it in my season with Barry, where he was really expecting his wife to come each week, And it's just a brutal mental place to be in because you're always being disappointed. So you want to set your standard of expectations very low and find a place with those low expectations that you're in gratitude and okay with. You know, it's okay. It's gonna suck, and I'm thankful for whatever it is. And then when things that good happen well, it's only a good thing. Anyway, long tangent, but I think that mental aspect is important, and it's something that I learned personally when I was on the show. Like, I didn't need to be so annoyed and mad with my spot. It was what it was. You make the best of it. So. Next we see Matt, and what a bummer with the mouse chewing through his bowstring. Super annoying. Anyway, he was able to tie it together. Of course, that's also annoying just because then you got that little doubt about your bow, which is a key item out there. And it's going to change all your, your brace height and your tuning of your bow that you're going to probably want to figure out. Problem with having an untuned bow is you might hit an animal, but if that arrow's not shooting like a bullet, but it's like going like this, you're just not going to get very much penetration. So you got to take the time and the energy and all that to refigure out your knock height and all this when you're taking out a few inch section of your string. And anyway, it'd be a bummer to have to do all that out there, but he figured it out. What was I gonna say else? He talks a little bit about his like self-doubt and things like that, and it always hits it home for me. Like, I hope, good for him for going out there and just doing the stuff anyway. That's what you have to do, and you even when you feel a little bit over your head or you're worried about people's criticisms or whatever it is, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of those. Everybody gets criticized for everything on the show, so I'll be ready for that. It'll be fine. And Jordan, we get to see Jordan, and he makes a very nice log shelter, very finely crafted. I wonder if there's not, what's nice in northern regions, and you saw this a lot where we were, but you can build your shelter, you can lay down a log, lay moss on it, and lay your next log, and then you have a seal that you don't have to later come back and chink. So that's nice. I don't see him doing it there. Maybe there's not good sheets of moss around. So what I do like on his shelter, it's just side note, is he's got those bottom logs that go across his doorway rather than cutting the doorway all the way down. I don't know how much it saves you, but when you open a door, you'll always have the heat rushing out and in. Well, it goes out through that. The cold just comes rushing in through that low opening when you open a door. Where I noticed this a lot was on Russian saunas and banyas. When a lot of times in the village they'd make them with a step up, because when you open the door, that cold air rushes in along the bottom there, and if you have that step up, it kind of blocks it a little bit. Anyway, that's why I did that on my shelter on our season, and Jordan's got the little step over too. Don't think it's a bad idea. I don't know how much it saves, but and then my favorite part about the show, maybe why this episode seemed a little slower, was because we didn't see a lot of success, but always my favorite part of the show is when people have success getting food, because it is such it's a moment that I really connect to. There's so much joy in having success out there when you are starving, when you're working hard, having a lot of failures, persevering through, and then bam, you catch a fish, or you do whatever you do that's gonna feed you. It's so exciting, and so everybody out there that has experienced that, it's fishing and hunting on a whole nother level. And I always like to relate to that, so I was real excited to see him catch that nice big old fish. And so he and Clay both got some fish, and Nate also, who we didn't see. But then we see Rose, who made a fishing pole, and that's always good. I always want to see people make fishing poles. They're very effective. We've talked about that before. It can be really difficult if you don't have the right type of reel, and we'll see if Rose can figure out a way to use her little reel effectively on her pole, because it does make a difference. You can't usually just go buy fishing line and use the reel that's on the fishing line. They usually have little notches on the inside of the hole that catch when they try to spin, and there's a number of issues, but we'll see what she figures out as she goes forward. I still like Rose. I think she's been through a lot, just doing the amount of backcountry hunting she's done, that I think she'll be able to persevere through a lot, and she's tough and she'll do well. So let me see what else I've got down here. I'll just write about that for myself. I finally figured out a great bushcraft fishing rod, but I spent a lot of hours on the Siberian shore with a tangled mess of fishing line, trying to figure it out. Even the old Soviet reels, they're just the same principle. It's just a bearing with a thing that spins, kind of like, I guess, a bait caster. But you got to throw it out there and kind of hold the reel with your thumb just slightly to provide a little bit of drag so you don't get a big rat's nest. And there's a big learning curve on that. That's one of the things I teach on the courses, and oftentimes, you see it's a learning curve. It's not something you want to try for the first time when you're out there. And Michelle is just hammering the edible plants. I don't know if she got poison hemlock. I hope not. But she's trying to make the best of it. Got him. She talks about being a part of the food we get, whether you're in, raising animals or hunting, and I agree with her on that. It's really easy to get detached from all that, and then you're not only getting probably low quality food, meat, but also you just don't have awareness of where it comes from. So I like her talking about that, and it does build gratitude, as she says. She got sick and persevered through it. It's miserable being sick out there. I actually got sort of sick once. I had a whole pile of rabbits that was, I think, over the amount we were supposed to have at one time, which I wasn't aware of, and so I was told I had to get rid of some, eat them ASAP, and so I hadn't been eating them because I was sick of rabbit, and I had a bunch of moose and fish, and well, I had made a big pot of fish, and fish soup you don't have to cook very long. But I wasn't kind of thinking, and I had those rabbit and threw some in there. And I had smoked and dried them, but where I cut the head off, there was a little moisture left in there. And I didn't boil it long enough. I kind of forgot it, threw it in there. And then ate my fish soup with a little bit of rabbit in there as I was trying to get rid of it. And started getting a pounding headache that night. And I was like, but you're just going to push through it. You just got to deal with it. But it's very unpleasant, but she pushes through. Wishing her the best. It's she is thin. It is a disadvantage out there. That's going to put a lot of pressure on her to get some food. But anyway, those are some of my thoughts on episode 2. I like the exploration. I know he's going to get a lot of crap. It's have a lot of people talking about, you let your bowstring get chewed. It's like, mice are all over the place. And what I've heard is they can't trap mice up there. If that's true, that's a major bummer. And I'm sure Matt was very displeased about that. So anyway, at least he overcame his little trials, and we'll see if he can use that bow to get anything. There is a bit of a spoiler in one of the previews that got me excited, but I won't talk about it because not everyone sees those previews. Anyway, cheers. Thanks for watching.